Okay, good afternoon, Form 5s. So on week 3 now, and we're going to finish carbohydrates this week. So we're starting on slide 28 and we're working our way to slide 34. So we're going to look at fibre, which is also known as cellulose, and it's a polysaccharide. And we're going to work our way through digestion, absorption and utilization of carbohydrates. So how is it digested? What are the digestive enzymes? Absorption, where are those digested nutrients absorbed? And how are they used or utilized in our bodies? So we'll start off here looking at fibre. So it is recommended that 35 grams of fibre is included in our diet every day. However, Irish people currently only eat around 15 grams, so we're not eating enough fibre. And you will notice that the food pyramid, if you look at the second shelf from the bottom, which is where our carbohydrate shelf is, you'll see on the diagram that it's really brown pasta, brown rice, brown bread, whole grain cereals. We're encouraged to eat the high fibre varieties where possible. So why do we need fibre? Well, I always say this is like the Weet-Bix in the milk. It absorbs it, it expands, it gets fuller, it becomes very thick. So fibre gives us that feeling of fullness that we need to carry us through the day. So weight reducing diets or any of those sort of diets, very good to have fibre included in the diet. So nice Weet-Bix for breakfast, muesli, all bran, whole cereals, porridge, okay, to start us off and kickstart us for the day then, so that we're feeling full. And a lot of those foods are low GI foods as well, which means that they'll slow release the energy during the day, that it's not just like a burst, like a sugar burst of energy that you get. And fibre helps other foods pass along the digestive system by peristalsis, so that's a very important word, and prevents bowel disorders. So we're going to link this in with our diet chapter. So we touched on fibre there, and it's like the Weet-Bix, as I say, it absorbs the water in our gut, it makes our waste bulky and easy to eliminate and get rid of out of the body, and therefore helps to prevent those dangerous chemicals from lurking in the bowel area, which can cause bowel disorders. Now the next slide, so how can we increase fibre? So reduce the intake of sugar and refined, that means processed, starch, and choose whole grain bread and whole grain pasta and breakfast cereals, whole grain breakfast cereals instead. So none of the Frosties or the Sugar Puffs or the Rice Krispies, but rather taking the higher fibre variety, the fruit and fibre, the all bran, the Weet-Bix, the muesli, the porridge. Add bran to your breakfast cereals and homemade bread, because that comes from the cereal grain and it's high in fibre. Increase fruit and veg and eat with the skin on where possible. So instead of peeling them, if you can eat with the skin on, do. And increase seeds and nuts. So pop them onto salads, have them as snacks, etc., because they're full and packed with fibre. Okay, the energy value of carbohydrates. So 1 gram of carbohydrate gives us 4 kilocalories of energy. So we touched on that in the diet chapter as well, so that's linking, direct link back in there. Cellulose then, as it is not digested by the body, does not provide calories. So great that fibre is great for weight reducing diets, and it is recommended that most of our energy comes from carbohydrates, so we should try and get about 50% of our total energy value from carbohydrate foods. Now we move into the digestion, the absorption and the utilization. So first of all, we split this into 3 areas: digestion, absorption, and then utilization. How are our digested nutrients, how are our glucose units used? So starting off with digestion. So know this in table format also, so see your textbook for that, and that's important. They love asking that in short questions. During digestion, carbohydrates are hydrolyzed, so that means the disaccharides are broken down into monosaccharide units by the addition of water. To break them down into monosaccharides, hydrolysis involves the addition of water. So here we have our polysaccharides, which are our long chains. They're broken down into disaccharides, which are double sugars. and then water further breaks them down into their single units. They cannot be absorbed with a link. They have to be in their single unit structure, single monosaccharides only. Okay? Single in order to be absorbed. So let's look at where the digestion takes place. Now, the two main areas for digestion are the mouth and the small intestine. So in the mouth, we physically break down food by our teeth. But the one that we're looking at here is the chemical breakdown. So salivary amylase breaks down our starchy foods into maltose. And maltose is a sugar. It's a double sugar. It's a disaccharide. So if you eat bread for long enough, which is packed with starch, it'll actually start tasting sweet. Okay, because the saliva breaks it down into a maltose sugar. In the stomach, food is physically churned, so there's no chemical breakdown for carbohydrates here. And then in the intestine, you have pancreatic juice secreted into the small intestine, and you have more amylase. It's pancreatic amylase, and it breaks down more starch into maltose. And then you have 3 enzymes here in the intestine, in the intestinal juice. Maltase acts on maltose and breaks it down into glucose and glucose. 2 glucose units make up that disaccharide, maltose. So note the spelling. Maltase is the enzyme, and it acts on maltose, which is the substrate, and glucose plus glucose are the products. Sucrase is the second one in the intestinal juice, and it acts on sucrose and breaks it down into the 2 monosaccharides that make it up, glucose and fructose. So this is hydrolysis. And lactase breaks down lactose into glucose and galactose, the 2 monosaccharides that make up lactose. Okay, so we have salivary amylase, we have pancreatic amylase, and then we have 3 further ones coming from the intestinal juice. Maltase, sucrase, lactase. So where now that we have our monosaccharides in their single units, where are these absorbed through? So again, we're in the small intestine. That's where the digestion finishes, and that's now where the absorption is going to take place. So these monosaccharides are absorbed through the villi of the small intestine. So don't forget, your small intestine is covered in tiny little finger-like projections called villi, and that is where these digested nutrients, the monosaccharides, are brought through. And they're brought and carried into the bloodstream and are carried to the liver in the portal vein. So that's important. In the liver, fructose and galactose, which are 2 monosaccharides, are converted to glucose. So now we just have glucose. So how is it used? So this is the utilization. The monosaccharides are oxidized to produce energy. Some monosaccharides are changed to glycogen and stored in the liver and muscles as an energy reserve. Too much or excess carbohydrate that's not used or burned off is changed to fat and stored in the adipose tissue. And vitamin B1, B2 and B6 pyridoxine are needed to metabolize carbohydrates. Okay, so that's us completely finished with our carbohydrate chapter. And there's a lot to learn in that because you'll be having a test when we come back. Okay, so next week we're going to move on to carbohydrate foods. Okay, but this week I want you just to focus on wrapping up your carbohydrate, making sure you're happy with it, listening back over the voice recordings, and answering the questions and going back over the booklet. Some of the slides I have transferred to your booklet just for your information, and looking at the exam questions. So make sure we get all that wrapped up for Friday, and then hopefully next week we'll be looking at a new food, and we will be looking at a new assignment as well. Okay, thank you and have a great week. Bye.